Hello, everyone. Welcome back to RFD-TV Live. I am a substitute host for Mark Oppold. I'm Mike Hansen, and it's going to be an enjoyable evening tonight. Mark gave me a great assignment because I've had a chance to talk to our guest tonight, the guest from Monty's Plant Food. It's been an enjoyable time, and anytime you think an old farmer knows everything, you find out a lot of things that you didn't know before. The industry in nutrients just continues to grow. And there's new products, new just innovations, and of course, Mother Nature was able to come up with a unique set of growing circumstances, and we are thankful that we do have companies that are forward-thinking and have products that actually have real value and can be applied to get us over some of these unusual humps. So it's Monty's Plant Food tonight. That's the subject. And we're going to be covering a few of those things I just mentioned in the open. But the two most important guys are to my left, and they're the gentlemen that are going to be taking us through the challenges tonight. And they are Joe Dedman with Monty's Plant Food. Joe, thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you. Great to be here.
It's good to have a television pro to my to my left at the same time.
Yeah.
But it has taken some time to be able to explain the story. I mean, we can get so detailed and so many applications that we enjoy that you come back.
Yes.
And, of course, we always have a few new people with us every show, so it's time to kind of retrace a little bit and then get to the new. We also have Doug Hobbs with us. Doug, thank you very much for returning.
Glad to be here again.
Two returning guests. This should be very easy for me. All right, let's start a little bit. Again, let's go back. Joe, I want to start with you. A little bit of background, yourself and the company.
Well, I was born and raised on a dairy farm in Shelby County, Kentucky. Farmed most of my life, and then I went to work for a local co-op down here in the Southeast, this Southern States Cooperative. And I was with them for 17 years as a manager, field sales person, worked with farmers directly out in their fields. And then I went to work for Monty's Plant Food Company about 7 years ago. And I can tell you, it's been one of the most enjoyable journeys of working for this company because of the nature of the products that we bring forward to farmers. We're always trying to provide solutions for farmers to meet some of the difficult issues that they have to deal with every single farming season.
Well, we said that a little bit earlier when I was we were introducing ourselves that it's fun for me as well. It's much more enjoyable, I'll put it that way, when somebody brings solutions instead of a product.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and that's what you guys have been working on since the inception, isn't it?
Yes, it truly is. We've been working on that for some 12+ years in agriculture. So, yes, it's an ongoing task, and we're constantly looking for new products that will meet an issue or meet a need for the farmer out in the field.
Well, I thought I had kind of a background, but some of the products tonight are just, I mean, they aren't brand new in its substance, but in their uses and in their purity, to where they you enhance the natural ability and then in application. That's what's really unique to me. Doug, thanks again for coming back. A little bit about yourself.
Sure. I also worked in the retail ag industry a little bit and helped around the family farms and that kind of thing. And taught school for 4 years and ran my own business before coming to Monty's. Actually came to Monty's as a customer to start with, so I used the product, and then later on ended up getting together and working with the company. It's been a terrific company to work with, and the people are just fantastic. And it's exciting to have great products that we can bring to the market and help people out with. So.
All right, Joe, let's get a little bit deeper because we said solutions, but let's get into that just a little bit further. It's through soil conditioners.
Yes.
One area?
We have a soil conditioner product. In fact, we have around 3 of them. One's called a liquid carbon, one's called a calcium plus, the other one's called a nanobind product. And we use those in different situations to treat different things that's happening out on the farm. In fact, one of the nanobind products we usually use in a tremendous salt situation, which lots of farmers are dealing with salt issues, whether they're irrigating and they're pumping that salt up out of the deep wells, or their soils just happen to be running very high in sodium and they run into all kinds of sodium issues. That's one great product that we're bringing to the forefront and helping farmers to put production back into soils that's been out of production.
And we're going to talk a little bit, in fact, we are going to talk in depth about the technology, but we've already mentioned unique conditions. Unique is actually too nice a word to put next to drought.
Yes.
You know, drought is just not a good word at any time. So let's talk a little bit about that. And Joe, do you want to continue to tackle that?
Yeah. You know, farmers have undergone probably some of the strangest events for quite some time. In fact, you've even talked to older farmers this year, and they said, I've never seen a year like this. And, of course, for the younger farmers, we've never seen a year like this. But drought has really had a tremendous impact on our industry all across our nation. This summer, I was able to travel out west, out in Missouri, part of Illinois. I've been down south in Georgia and Alabama. I've been over on the East Coast, and it has affected farmers everywhere this year, so much more widespread than we've ever seen before. But when you really come down to it, yes, these are issues they're dealing with, but it's also now what are we going to do after the drought, because now our soils have issues that we're going to have to deal with for maybe possibly 2 or 3 years to get them back up into shape that they are producing like I used to have them produce.
And you've got to start as soon as possible, because you don't want recovery at these crop prices.
Exactly.
You don't want recovery to drag on too long.
Right, exactly.
Let's talk a little bit on this production thing, Joe. There is every almost imaginable circumstance out there. I'm sure that you can find some guys that have had too much rain in pockets.
Right.
In the Midwest, we've seen some farmers who endured months of flooding the year before, and you talk about wanting to find experts to find out what silt does, laying on top of the ground and killing everything, and the drought as well. So what's been your perspective?
Well, we've seen a lot of soils that have been got compaction problems now from the lack of moisture in them. Soils have drawn up. We've seen crops that basically corn crops that people have had to just go in and cut them and chop them up. We've seen root development problems. We've seen a lot of issues that really we haven't seen for several years because it's been such a unique season. So it's really been ugly everywhere I've been. I've seen corn tasseled out waist high. I've seen corn with no ear. Soybeans with no hardly any pods. So we've seen a wide gamut of conditions out there.
We're going to take a look at photos in just a second, but when we talked earlier, I kind of gave you that look when we talked about soil compaction. Typically, we're just talking about, equipment compaction. But Shay, this is actually self-compacting when you have a drought year. Explain that just a little bit.
Well, the huge difference is, I mean, farmers run into compaction issues every year. They're either getting on soils a little too damp or too wet when they plant, and they run into compaction issues with their equipment, with their tires. And what we're seeing this year is when that soil dries out to the degree it has this year, and the moisture begins to leave between all those soil colloids, they continue to collapse. And as they collapse, they get tighter and tighter and tighter, which adds to the compaction issues. And then the longer the drought goes, then the deeper that goes in the soil. So they'll have compaction issues a lot deeper and a lot tighter than they've ever had before.
And a lot more widespread.
Yeah.
We're not talking tracks here.
Exactly.
End rows.
Yes, and so then the issue then becomes, how do I get my soils rejuvenated or put back into condition where my roots will grow in it of whatever crop I plant. They have plenty of room to spread. They have oxygen. They have moisture and all this. So this is part of what we're trying to introduce tonight is a program that our products can do, especially if you begin to use them this fall. As I told you earlier, as long as they start putting them on right after the show, then they're going to get faster results. So that's what we're bringing online with the liquid carbon products, the NanoBind Calcium Plus.
Let's take a look at some of the photos of some of the conditions that you guys have run into in this past growing season.
And we had some photos here on the corn issues of the drying out of the soil, and then you saw so much compaction issues coming in here, which and even in this case here, this is a soybean, but the ground is cracked open to such a degree that it can't get any moisture, nutrients, or something up through the root system. And then the other thing you run into with compaction is all these layers that will form. And then a root can only penetrate 200 pounds pressure per square inch. So as that crop gets planted next season, or even maybe this fall with some wheat and stuff going in, unless you put on a product similar to ours that really is an activated product and begins to loosen that soil, then the crop is going to have trouble establishing that root system and growing down through those layers of compaction. And then even this year, you don't normally see this with soybeans, but that flat look was due to dry soils and compaction, and it just was not able to put roots down deeper to get to the nutrients, to the water.
You'd naturally expect the vertical root system on that, searching for water.
Yeah, which is what we normally see on soybeans. And in even this case, this is where the farmer went out and planted too early in the spring, and the ground cracks open, but it's too damp to seal back together, and then this dries out all season long. And you add that to this year's drought, and that just provided a window for that dry weather to go right down deeper and deeper into the soil. So these are going to be some issues that they're dealing with. And then we use this tool lots of times to test how deep or how compacted that soil is, to help farmers to understand how great of an issue this is for them to deal with. So that's a penetrometer that we see on the screen now.
Okay, we're going to have a little bit of a demonstration in just a second, but let's go ahead and lay the field out. Liquid carbon, Calcium Plus, Nanobind.
Yes. That's right.
Go over those three a little bit for us so we can start getting the picture. What do they do? Well,
liquid carbon is our foundation product for the soil. And in the rest of the products, Calcium Plus, Nanobind, the liquid carbon is the component in those products. And so what we bring in the little demo that we'll do here in a second happens to be our proprietary humic technology that makes these products work the way they work in the soil. And that's why we can come out here and say, hey, farmers, we know you've got issues. We know you're going to be dealing with issues next year. This product will really get you started on the road to recovery so much faster if you'll just try it. And you know, as we've done on other programs, you don't have to put it on all 1,400 acres. You just try it on 100 or try it on 500 or something, but you will see a difference. In fact, much of our program tonight will lay out testimonies of what they have seen done with the liquid carbon.
Humic technology. Let's get an explanation and maybe a little demonstration at the same time, because I wasn't thinking a soluble product at all.
Right. And this is the leading competitive product on the market today. That is just it's a dry humic, dry carbon product, and as you can see, it is insoluble.
That's what I expected.
Yeah, it doesn't do very much at all. And then we've got our product. Well, actually, ours is, I reversed. I got the cups backwards.
There you go. Well, now we can see.
Yeah, now you can see.
All of a sudden, the transformation
so
here.
This is the active humic technology. And because ours dissolves and goes out very quickly, dispersing out into the soil so that we can help rejuvenate, revitalize those soil colloids to begin to hold moisture again, to begin to separate, to relieve the compaction. Lots of things is going on in the soil with this product, and it will do a tremendous amount of work through the wintertime. When you're ready to go out and do planting next spring, you will have prepared your soil
Excuse me.
So much better that now you don't run into near as many planting issues.
Now we can. Now I've got it straight because this the glass closest to me.
Yes.
That's what I would have expected for the rest of the show. If we left it up there.
Yeah. And it will be. It will be
just sit that way for a long time, and then it'll stay right there just like that.
Okay, let's get into a few things that we were talking about too. That's residue management.
Yes.
Do we have some new issues along there too, and then some long-standing issues because of the kinds of hybrids we're growing right now? Right. It takes quite a stalk of corn to get the kind of yields that our seed companies are trying to give us.
Yeah, that's right. And with more and more of the stack technology that they're bringing out on the market, this is a higher degree of lignin that is now in that corn stubble and corn stalk. And so we're finding, and farmers are telling us as well, that this is an ongoing issue. I am having trouble breaking down my corn stalks so that when I go out next spring to plant through them, it's giving me trouble. They won't break up, they won't come apart, they're hard to decompose. And so what we've done is bring online this active technology here and go out in the fall of the year and actually treat the corn stalks. And that helps to break them down for spring planting. And I think even one of our testimony guy here will talk about what you will expect to see is not a tremendous decomposition of that corn stubble, but it will make it brittle. And then when he plants through it, it shatters. And that makes it easy for him to get his planter through it. It doesn't clog up the coulters and the row cleaners and all like that. So it really adds to his ability to plant very easily into that soil. And then again, we're helping to speed up that decomposition.
Joe, let's take a look at some of the photos that we have up now about residue.
Well, yeah, some of the residue issues that we run into is just like this picture, that you've got so much on the soil that when you plant through it, the planter cannot get down to the seed, to the soil, and then we run into all kinds of germination issues. So we got this scattered germination down the row, and as you can even see in some pockets there, we didn't even get germination at all. It either rotted under the soil or it did not get in contact with the soil so that it could come up. And I think even in some of the other photos that we've got here, you see this little band of residue through here just really stifles your entire population of planting coming up. So you can't get a good even stand, you can't get a good issue there. And then this is what farmers are dealing with every single year is, how do I get rid of all this corn stubble, this corn stalks behind the combine, because it can and many times presents a problem for next spring when they go out there to plant their beans. And here's just another close-up right behind the combine is how much residue is there. And then we depend on Mother Nature to decompose that and break it up. And that's where our carbon mixed with sugar will help decompose that. And in many times, farmers are even adding nitrogen to speed up that whole residue breakdown process as well.
Doug, your experience with this then, on where you travel?
Well, I'm mainly in southern Indiana. I get into Ohio some. I've traveled around all over the U.S. looking at some of these crops, but along with what Joe was saying, this residue is becoming a bigger and bigger issue. We've got higher populations, we've got higher yields. The hybrids are more defensive now. So what we're finding out is guys are really having to go out there and spend a lot of money on iron in order to deal with this residue. A lot of the problems that we're creating with that, besides the compaction, we're also destroying some of the microbial activity in the soil that has to eat that stuff up. So one of the things that's great about the Monty's product and liquid carbon is it does create that healthy environment for that microbial activity to get kick-started. And what we're doing here is actually generating a natural process to get those corn stalks and that residue eaten up by the bugs in the soil, which is what we really need for a healthy soil environment to start with.
Right.
Well, let's, right now, let's hear from a producer in North Carolina who's also experienced some great results using Monty's. Let's hear from Paul Talley.
My name is Paul Talley. I work on a family farm in Stanfield, North Carolina, and we farm mainly in western North Carolina. We grow corn, wheat, and soybeans. We were having a problem with corn stalks being left over the following year when we were trying to plant. They just wouldn't break down, and when we try to plant through them, the front coulters, they would raft up, making big clumps of residue. So we used the Monty's liquid carbon to help with residue breakdown. I think we used a half gallon per acre of carbon, and we also used the AgriSweet product. It worked really well. The stalks were still there, but when you went to plant through them, they were brittle. They broke up. We were able to plant through them. We applied the Monty's products through a sprayer with a water carrier and used liquid carbon, the AgriSweet, and some liquid nitrogen. We also used it in our pop-up and saw a lot of improvement in our stalk quality. The corn held up through the dry weather a lot better. Our corn's holding up better than the neighbor's corn. They started pineapple and rolling up a lot sooner. We like to use Monty's products because what we were using them for, they worked properly.
Joe, we like hearing from individuals like this, but you're replicating that pretty much territory-wide, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay.
And that's working real well.
It is. And it's a tremendous, I think it's one of the most exciting things we can be doing in the fall is getting that product on this residue. It's and it doesn't go away. It continues to work in the soil profile, builds the soil texture, builds the soil structure as it works through, and creates an environment where we can have a healthier root mass for these small grains that are being planted in the fall.
Now, this is involved then. What about the root mass then? The following, well, sometimes you have a huge root mass anyhow.
Right.
You know, in the ground. And then, of course, then you're trying to develop a great one for the following crop.
Right. Well, again, as we get that biological activity up and running and we get that healthier environment, the roots aren't stunted by the poisons in the soil, so to speak, so they tend to grow healthier. They get a larger root mass. When we have bigger roots, we have better plants. We have better tillers. We have more yield. So we've seen time after time when we go out, we have our Monty's product versus where we don't. We pull up the plant and we can see sometimes twice, 3 times the root mass. It's pretty tremendous sometimes, the difference in root mass.
And exactly what Doug's talking about here with what we saw in the glass, it's the humic and the fulvic technology together that's actually stimulating biology in the soil as well as becoming a catalyst, a natural catalyst in the soil. Our product lends such credence to sustainable agriculture. That's right. And that it just continues to improve the soil as the more and more the farmers use that and put it on the soil and it works in. Okay, so we have liquid carbon. Any other products that complement that then? Well, the AgriSweet, as he mentioned in the video, he puts the sugar on because that is a food source for microbes. And we want those microbes to multiply as fast as they can because that's what's going to really help bring our soils back to the higher production levels that they've been in the past. So together with the AgriSweet, he mentioned using some nitrogen. Again, that's another food source for the microbes. And so that's all we're doing. We're stimulating that microbial activity in the soil more naturally to make the soil environment how it really should be. And then a crop, any kind of crop you plant in it, wheat or corn or beans next year will be stimulated off of all that activity that's in the soil. A lot of conversation to follow, but one thing about Monty's, we can bring expert after expert, and we're going to have a couple of new experts in to give you guys a break in a minute. Exactly. So we'll get to the next segment, and you stay with us on RFD-TV Live.
Take control with AgriHance. Maximize your yields with the versatility and control of AgriHance R. AgriHance R is a foliar-applied nutrient management program designed to provide key nutrients during your crop's reproductive stage. AgriHance R delivers the best possible finish to your crops, enhancing the quality of your grain, fruit, and vegetables. Maximize your yields. Call, click, or talk to your dealer today and take control with AgriHance.
Welcome to RFD-TV's new product showcase featuring today's latest products.
Now you can ensure a better harvest this fall by preparing your soils this spring. Monty's Liquid Carbon is an organic soil conditioner that is readily available to move into your soil, offering relief from your toughest challenges. Liquid Carbon also helps improve nutrient efficiency, and Monty's tank mix flexibility makes burn down the perfect time to improve your soil and maximize your yield potential. For more information and to find a dealer, visit Monty'sPlantFood.com. You can always expect to see the people and personalities that keep the ranching spirit alive on The American Rancher. This magazine-style series provides ranch owners the opportunity to showcase their operations, while at the same time sharing the experience of ranching with RFD-TV viewers in a real way. So join your host, Pam Minnick, on an informative visit with The American Rancher, right here on RFD-TV, rural America's most important network.
If you have CRP ground that you're going to put back into crop production for next year, what are the steps you should take to raise a great crop? Hi, I'm Brian Hefty, and along with my brother Darren on this week's Ag PhD, we'll talk about CRP this fall.
Well, one of the things you need to do to raise a great crop in any field is soil sampling and understanding what's going on in the ground so you can maximize your return from your fertility investment.
As always, we have a Weed of the Week, an Iron Talk, and a Farm Basics too. That's all coming up on this week's Ag PhD.
Welcome back to RFD-TV Live with Monty's Plant Food, and I get to introduce the guy that said he's going to buy me dinner tonight because my first try, I got the name right. Isn't it nice to start out that way? It is. By the way, it's Gary Coughlin. Just thought I should tell you that since we've been making fun of him for part of the day, too. And with Gary, we have Dan Marley's with us. And we've got some other subjects to discuss with these two guys. But right now, I want to take a little bit of time because I always like to know the background of the people that we're talking to and why they got so interested to be able to join a company and then start liking these products and watching the application and the results of the products. So let's take care of that first. Gary, start with you. A little bit about your background, where you came from.
Okay. Well, I am a native Kentuckian, and I live in Kentucky today. I grew up on a burley tobacco and a dairy farm, was able to go to college, got my degree from the University of Kentucky in agriculture, got out of college and went to work for a regional farm supply cooperative by the name of Southern States and worked for them for 40 years. And of those 40 years, 34 of them were spent as an agronomist with them. I retired, took off a year, went back to work for Monty's, and I am now ending up my 4th year with Monty's. So I work with Joe, and we manage Monty's Research Farm together, and I also work with Joe as far as holding producer meetings and then training meetings for dealers and also for our field staff and a little on the sales side.
It would be nice if just one television program could take care of all the work that's needed to be able to explain products and do the one-on-one, wouldn't it?
It would.
I've met guys that have been out in the field, and but I do appreciate the passion, and I do appreciate the ability to stand in front of a producer audience and answer all the questions.
Mike, 44 years total in the ag business. I honestly cannot think of another job that I could have had for that long that I have enjoyed as much as I have working with producers and dealers.
Dan Marley, thanks again for coming tonight. A little bit about yourself,
Mike.
A little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I grew up in north central Indiana, in the middle of corn and soybean country up there, and had a couple other jobs out of school and ended up down in Louisville, Kentucky. I was there for about 15 years and got on with Monty's Plant Food down there. Worked out of their corporate office for about 5 years and then was able to move back to north central Indiana about 4 years ago. So I've been with Monty's almost 9 years now. Now what I get to do is go around and visit with co-ops, farmers, feed and seed stores, looking at their issues. And I cover parts of Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, up into Wisconsin, and work with crops, everything from corn, soybeans, wheat, to hay and forage crops, and specialty crops too, everything from tomatoes and sweet corn in Indiana to green beans in Michigan to cranberries in Wisconsin. So a lot of variety and a lot of fun.
Well, and a lot of heat that can affect all kinds of crops. When you were going through all of those crops, then you start realizing it's if you were growing something for a living, you got hit pretty hard this year.
Yeah, unfortunately that's the case. And along with the dry weather, on top of that, we had some extreme temperatures as well. So even if you take the drought out of the equation or add to that, we, for instance, may get 2 days over 100 degrees, typically where we are in north central Indiana. This year we had stretches of 5 days in a row where we were over 100 degrees. So, you know, that kind of compounds the issue of the drought itself, which is very, very severe to start with. But then when you have that coupled along with the extreme temperatures that we saw, yeah, we have everything out there from, you know, 0 to maybe 50 to 60% on the corn side of what guys are used to seeing on their fields.
Let's talk about a crop that we haven't gotten into as yet, but it's a critical time. We've got guys out now in the fields. I mean, they're taking corn out a little bit early, but we had some in the Midwest part of the country where I'm from. We had some early planted corn, but at the same time, the dry down was pretty rapid. So we've got guys working there. But wheat producers in general, this is really getting into a critical time. Let's talk about, let's apply what we've been doing and talking about and apply it to wheat producers.
Dan has touched on it and Joe's touched on it. We showed some pictures, but I think before we get to wheat, Mike, maybe we need to reemphasize again that this has been a doggone tough year on producers, particularly corn producers. We had an early spring. Guys got it in the ground somewhat earlier than normal. And as a result of that, with these high temperatures we had, high humidity, no rain in sight for days, we just faced an enormous drought. And it's my opinion that other than pockets in this country, we got darn near a disaster on corn. Now, in Kentucky today, we have farmers who are chopping their corn for silage that was put out for purpose of grain. And some of them, literally because it's a total loss, are just bush hogging it to the ground. Now, having said all that, we've got a shortage, I think, of dollars from crop inputs that go back to spring, and farmers are looking for some cash flow. So here we are almost the 1st of September, and where's that money coming from? And I think it has to be from wheat. With the wheat price being more than $8, whatever it is today, I think that's the crop we're going to be looking for. So if we're going to be doing that, that's got to start with planting time. And we're talking about precision planting. So producers, get out the planters, calibrate them, make sure that you're able to cut through all that trash that we've talked about, that fodder, and get that good seed-to-soil contact. And we must remember there's 3 components of wheat yield. And those components are the heads per acre, the number of kernels per head, and the weight per kernel. So in those heads per acre, we would like to have 60 to 70 heads per square foot. We'd like to have 30 or more kernels per head, and then obviously as much test weight as we can get. And in planting, we talked about precision planting, and some of that planting pounds depends upon the row width that you got, but probably on an average 20, 22 seeds per linear foot is what we're looking at.
Now, this is a challenge. You're talking about switching crops to take advantage, and it's almost necessary for the cash flow reasons that you gave. A ton of challenges and all of that.
It sure is. And this is where the Monty's program comes in. Joe talked about, and Doug talked about the use of the liquid carbon for what all it can do to your soil as far as over time decompacting, but making just an overall healthier soil. And then using the Monty's lineup, which would be the Agrihance S as a starter, and then the V and the R that we'll talk about shortly.
Okay. Let's take a look at a quick video.
Okay.
That'll help bring us up to speed. Let's take a look.
We started using Monty's products in the spring of 2011. We used the liquid carbon and the AgriSuite with our winter wheat as a pre-plant to help with the residue management and to encourage fall tillering in the wheat. The results that we've had with Monty's have been phenomenal, from a bushel increase at harvest all the way through the plant health from the beginning of the fall in late October at emergence all the way through the spring. The crop just looks healthier. You don't have as many issues. Looks like it's taking up the fertilizer that we're putting out, and we're getting the most bang for our buck with our fertilizer using the carbon. And it's on our farm, we use a lot of poultry manure, and we're able to get what's left over from the crop before with the manure, and it's helping bring that up into the crop. And we've actually seen the rates of the fertilizer that we have to use on our wheat go down considerable because of what the carbon's making available to the crop. For other farmers that are wanting to consider or thinking of considering Monty's as something to add to their farm, I would definitely recommend it as something to add without any hesitation of hurting your crop or any kind of problems handling it or mixing it. It's been an asset to our farm, and we look forward to using it for years to come.
Now, Dan, I want to talk to you for just a second here, because it's just good for you to take me through these wheat yield building factors, everything that needs to be in. But also, these are all key components now for anyone that's looking at this upcoming season. And
Absolutely.
They're beginning to. So let's take a look, and I think we got a slide to help out.
Absolutely, and there's a list of key items that you need to think about going into this wheat season. First of all, variety selection. Every variety has weaknesses and strengths. Be sure that you're picking a variety that is fitting your climate, but also the kind of soil you have, the nutrition program you have, and then that leads into the precision planting that Gary already talked on. In addition to corn and soybeans, where we always think about this, think about precision planting with the wheat. That is becoming more and more key. Plant nutrition. What kind of fertility do you have in the soils? In addition to that fertility, do you need to look at foliar feeds? Do you need to look at micronutrient levels? And then controlling some of the things that can take away and rob some of those wheat yields. Everything from controlling your weeds to controlling your insects, controlling your disease. The more that we can take out those negative factors, the more we keep that yield potential near its top. And then harvest management. This entire thing is thinking about harvest management and actually managing the harvest. So once we get to that point of harvest, be looking at the weather, but also be thinking about, how you can take that crop out efficiently once you get that crop to where you want it, so that you keep the yield that you have.
And just a little bit of a follow-up. So there's more after post-planting. There are options to be able to help. What you're talking about is actually managing that wheat yield. Am I right there?
Absolutely. And that's something that I think we think about more on corn and we think about more on soybeans.
Exactly.
But on wheat, a lot of times, once we plant it and then we know maybe we need to add some nitrogen to it in the spring. But beyond that, a lot of times we don't think about trying to feed that plant and feed that crop. Monty's Agrihance S is a great way to feed that crop once it's planted. So if you have a planter or are using a planter for your wheat, if you have the ability to put a liquid on that, that's one option. To be honest with you, a lot of guys aren't set up to use a planter right now on the wheat. We're still drilling our wheat. So then you can use that Agrihance later on, once that plant is up and actively growing. But we can also use the carbon either before the time of planting, at the time of planting, or even later in the fall, all the way up to, say, November, for instance, depending on what part of the country you have and when those freezing temperatures tend to hit you.
Gary, build and protect. That sounds like the motto tonight.
Mike, in the past several years, there has been a lot of emphasis placed on high yield intensive management of wheat. And in order to do that, I think we need to have this two-pronged approach, and that is to build and protect. We've got to build that crop up, or build the soil up, in order to get it off and get it producing. Some of the things that Dan mentioned as far as variety selection and planting and everything else, making sure your fertility is right, your pH is right. You've used the Monty's product line up on that to build up. But then we got to protect it against diseases and insects and weeds. So there's an opportunity all through there for the use of Monty's products. Now, having said that, we've got to understand that the greatest response by any crop, but right now we're talking about wheat, but the greatest response by any crop to a production input is at a specific growth stage of that crop and not just a calendar date. And then maybe the last thing on wheat is to remember that we want to do everything we can, Dan, to encourage that fall tillering. Because the more tillers we can put on the fall, every one of those tillers has got the potential to produce a head. And obviously the more tillers and then more heads we can produce, that's where we're getting a bump on these high yield in wheats.
And the key factor for getting those increased tillers then in the fall, Dan? Is that following the Monty's protocol here?
Absolutely. Actually using that Monty's liquid carbon in the fall can actually help increase some of that tillering. And we'll see some videos in a little bit that even show some proof and evidence of that. But the more fall tillers you have, those first 60 days that wheat seed is in the soil in the fall is key. The more tillers you can get in the fall, those fall tillers are going to be more productive for you and mean more grain in the spring than the ones that you get in the spring. Not to say that spring tillers aren't important, but the more tillering you can see and promote in the fall, that's going to lead to those higher yields.
Let's take a look at some images, I think, that we have ready. And if we can bring those up, the AgriHance S, there we go.
Yeah, and the AgriHance S we can look at putting down at the time of planting or once that plant is germinated and coming out of the ground, going across the top of that. That will help promote good root mass. That's something ideally that we need and want strongly going into the winter. The more root mass that we can get before you hit the winter, the more benefit we'll see, and the carbon will be along as a help for that.
Okay. Let's hear from an agronomist now who knows quite a lot about the topic, Ron Perry. Ron is president of the North Carolina Small Grain Growers Association. Let's listen to what he has to say.
My name is Ron Perry. I'm an agronomist for Southern States Cooperative. I've been working for Southern States almost 25 years now. I currently serve Central and Eastern North Carolina and a little bit of South Carolina. We're adding Monty's products as a recommendation to our growers because we feel like it is adding benefit to our growers. It's making them money. It's very effective. We've seen positive responses in the amount of tillers that are produced. We've seen positive responses in the growth of the plant, the greenness and healthiness of the plant. We've seen mitigation of command damage in wheat. We've seen mitigation of the burn that UAN sometimes causes on wheat as well. We've seen increased growth, improved growth, and increased tillering, which of course is a critical component of yield. Some of the other successes that we've seen with Monty's products are we've seen increased growth in tobacco. We've seen a positive response also in corn. It mixes well and it stays in solution. Where we've had a problem with soil compaction and we have applied Monty's liquid carbon, we have seen a positive response in decreasing soil compaction. Now, people have to remember this is not an overnight fix. It takes a little while, so they need to be patient. We need to have moisture and we need some time, but it does work. I've seen it work, and it will help you if you've got a compacted soil. Our growers see an excellent return on their investment with Monty's products.
Gary, help me go over some of the key points of that video that we just saw.
Well, Ron had so many, I don't know if I can remember them all.
Yeah.
But I do remember him saying that his co-op was supporting this program, and I remember him saying that the producers had bought into this system and that they were seeing results from it, and that it was giving them a return on their investment. I think he also said that they were seeing a difference in the yield and a difference in the quality of whatever they were putting it on, Dan, as far as a greener plant and a healthier plant. He also made mention that where they had put this with their liquid nitrogen and making foliar applications on the wheat, that it had greatly reduced the burn on the leaf surface.
The mitigation that we were seeing there.
And then he also made the comment that they had seen that the carbon, when applied to certain crops, had mitigated chemical carryover. So I don't know, did I miss anything?
I don't think you missed one, but I was hoping you would come up with a mitigation, but it was like a side benefit. Yeah. But again, the one that leads directly to yields, though.
And see, he also commented on the fact of exactly what I touched on earlier and Dan touched on, was this increase in tillering on wheat.
Yeah.
Dan, let's take a look at a couple of examples of early stages of wheat development. Let's bring them up on the screen and take me through it.
Yeah, and of course here we see those early tillers, and as we've talked about and alluded to already, the more tillers we can get in the fall, that's where we have the greatest opportunity to maybe increase that yield next spring. So the carbon is a great source and a great way to do that. And then this in the spring, obviously this is what we want our field to look like. At this stage, you know, kind of boot stage to where that head's starting to get ready to go out. We also have an opportunity with our other AgriHance products. You may want to go through with a V or an R at this point if you're spraying an insecticide to kind of boost more energy directly into that grain head, which is what we see here as we try and develop the actual grain on that head to get the production that we're looking for.
Fellows, I'll toss it out to both of you. Maybe Gary, research. You know, we'd never go through a product introduction or even a change in practice without seeing the research behind it. And I'm sure there's some research here to talk about.
Well, Joe and I obviously are doing our own in-house research, trying to find the so-called magic bullet to help farmers increase their efficiency and whatnot. But also a gentleman down at North Carolina State by the name of Dr. Ron Heiniger, who is their crops research extension specialist, has done numerous trials, not only with Monty's products, but with other products also, trying to increase the farmer's efficiency. And I think we have a video from Dr. Heiniger.
Well, let's take a look now. We have Dr. Heiniger, who has done an extensive test along with Monty's, but other products. I think that he'll mention other practices. And he likes to do side-by-side, too.
Yes.
Let's take a look at the video.
I'm Dr. Ron Heiniger. I'm from North Carolina State University, the Department of Crop Science. I'm stationed out at the Vernon James Center here in Plymouth, North Carolina. My primary responsibilities lies in corn and wheat cropping systems. I do a lot of applied research in both of those, working with different management practices. What I do is I go out and look at different management practices in the field. We find out which ones are working best for the farmer, and then we go out and talk to farmers about what practices they should use, how to combine them with different management things like populations or hybrids to get the best results and highest economic returns. I conduct a number of different types of research, everything from plant physiology research, looking at silking, timing. In wheat, we do a lot of work on tiller development, trying to look at the physiology of the plant, determining how it determines when to put on tillers, when to actually cause a tiller to abort. Right now, we're looking at seed weight in wheat. What causes seed weight to increase? What are the role of temperature and water in that process? In addition to that, as I said earlier, I do a lot of work with looking at different practices side by side with a checker. You know, is this practice better than doing nothing at all? And how much more yield does it give the grower? Well, I recommend Monty's because it does a lot of things that plant really needs. First of all, it helps stimulate those tillers. When we went and looked at tiller development here over the last 3 to 5 years, we found out that one of the thing that plant needs is a lot of early growth, and Monty's carbon helps stimulate early root development and early growth and helps that plant set tillers. Tillers in a wheat plant are developed early. It's when that first 60 days after that plant comes up, that's the time to put tillers on. And an application of Monty's carbon at planting time helps stimulate that plant to grow faster, put more tillers on, and of course lead to better yields. The other things I've seen with Monty's products that I like a lot is reducing wheat burn. We do a lot of top dressing in wheat in North Carolina with liquid products like 30% UAN. Oftentimes the time when it's heating up, that wheat's growing rapidly, it's very susceptible to leaf burn. So I like to put in a quart of Monty's carbon and to an acre, and it improves that plant's growth and resists that leaf burn that we oftentimes see with UAN. The one thing that I like about Monty's product is both the quality. I think that whenever you're buying a product like liquid carbon, you want a pure product that's not containing a lot of different things that may or may not have an adverse effect on the plant. Monty's is a very pure product. It's a product that works very well with mixes and things like UAN. It mixes well because it doesn't have any other contaminants. So I really like that, the purity, the quality of the product. From what we've seen, our research actually showed that we get about 10 to 15 more bushels to an acre of wheat anytime we've used the Monty's product. So the farmer has a good opportunity when you get that kind of return on your yield to get a return on investment, particularly with wheat in the $7 range. It doesn't take too many bushels to pay for a Monty's application.
Dr. Ron Heiniger, let's take a look down at real briefly now on some of the research data. I think we've got in on a slide or two up here to take a look.
And Dr. Heiniger kind of mentioned that they had seen between a 10 and a 15 bushel increase on the work that they had done at North Carolina State. This is the slide from 2011 yield, and you can see with no starter at all, they were a little over 77 bushel. Then they used another starter, which is not a Monty's product, and then they also used the Monty's liquid carbon, which ended up as a 16 bushel bump. And then again in 2012, just to say that it wasn't a fluke, we also saw a 10 bushel increase there again. And the Monty's liquid carbon is not an NPK product the way that other starter was. But again, it gets back to the importance of that first 60 days in the ground that Dr. Heininger was talking about and that increased tillering in the fall.
Okay. That's a good point for us to take a little break. And then we're going to come back and do a little bit of wrap-up here and a little bit of new information, too, with Monty's Plant Foods. We'll be back in just a minute on RFD-TV Live.
Take control with AgriHance. Maximize your yields with the versatility and control of AgriHance R. AgriHance R is a foliar-applied nutrient management program designed to provide key nutrients during your crop's reproductive stage. AgriHance R delivers the best possible finish to your crops, enhancing the quality of your grain, fruit, and vegetables. Maximize your yields. Call, click, or talk to your dealer today and take control with AgriHance.
Welcome to RFD-TV's new product showcase featuring today's latest products.
Now you can ensure a better harvest this fall by preparing your soils this spring. Monty's Liquid Carbon is an organic soil conditioner that is readily available to move into your soil, offering relief from your toughest challenges. Liquid Carbon also helps improve nutrient efficiency, and Monty's tank mix flexibility makes burn down the perfect time to improve your soil and maximize your yield potential. For more information and to find a dealer, visit montysplantfood.com. Welcome to today's New Holland Field Smart Minute.
I raise corn, soybeans, and in a rotation, about 50-50 rotation, and right now I'm planting corn. I use precision management mostly for swath control when I'm planting and when I'm spraying to shut off and on my equipment as I overlap. In these hills where I farm, I have lots of point rows and overlap, and it's good to have the machinery and GPS shutting it off and on. I also use it for some guidance. To follow the contours and to try to keep things spaced correctly. I believe I save some money definitely with the swath control, and then with the yield maps, I feel like it's done me better for helping to choose my hybrids that I use and I'll possibly make some more money that way.
For the rest of the story, go to newholland.com.
We know how to make a quick switch around here. Back with Monty's Plant Food on RFD-TV Live. Mike Hansen with you, and I've enjoyed myself tonight. It's so much fun to be able to learn things, and especially talk about crops that Midwestern corn and soybean guy just doesn't get to spend much time on. We brought Joe back, and we're going to get Joe's final thoughts in just a second, but I want to wrap up just before break. We were getting into some products that I'll make sure we know whether it's an application for wheat or not. We were talking about AgriHance V and R on previous shows. Mm-hmm. What about its capabilities or application to wheat?
Monty's introduced the AgriHance lineup, Mike, in this year, 2012, and we have tried to make that easy and simple for our producers to remember how to use it. We have coined the AgriHance S that Dan talked about as a starter, and then we have AgriHance V to apply as the vegetative stage of any crop, and then the AgriHance R that can be used at the reproductive when a crop starts reproduction.
Let's take a look at the, I believe it's the standard Feeks stage representation here. Do we have that up to be able to take a look? Here we go.
We might mention earlier that a crop's greatest response to an input is at various stages of growth when something is happening internally in that plant that can affect the yield or the stress or the test weight or anything else. And this is nothing but a slide of the Feeks scale that is in a lot of magazines, that production manuals that will show you the various stages. We talked about the tillering, and then we've talked about stem elongation, and then we talk about the boot stage, and we talk about heading, and we talk about the grain ripening and whatnot. So when we go back in the fall of the year, when the wheat comes up, a lot of farmers will go out in some areas and foliar apply a herbicide to maybe fight the chickweed or the henbit or the onions and the garlic at that point in time. And that's an excellent time to put on the AgriHance V. And then if the guys don't get it done at that time and come back in the spring of the year after the wheat has tillered, but before it joints, and make a herbicide application, you can still put in Agrihance V at that point in time. There's no mixing problems. Dr. Heiniger talked about the purity of the product. No mixing problems. And then another segment of it was the protect factor. And we're trying to protect that flag leaf, which is the last leaf that emerges before that head emerges. Mm-hmm. And over the years, the various ag chemical companies have been able to get label changes done to where later and later they are applying fungicide to help control some of those diseases, particularly for the head diseases. And that's just an excellent time to put in the Agrihance R. So there's no problem mixing, excellent tank flexibility.
And you know, Mike, also for our growers that are up north that grow spring wheat, this same kind of program will apply to spring wheat as well. I mean, because they go through the same thing, except they do it in a shorter period of time, 90 days. But they're always wanting to get to that early tiller, and then that development of that, and then into the fungicides and seed head and stuff. So the same kind of program can be used with spring wheat as well.
Well, especially so in spring wheat. Timing is really critical.
Correct.
We're going to have a unique opportunity for you tonight. Typically, you might be able to ask a question on RFD-TV Live, and these fellows will give you an answer, which always leads to a follow-up that you don't have time for. Well, we've made special arrangements after the show tonight. If you see the number on your screen, 1-800-978-6342, we do have people from Monty's Plant Food available to speak on these topics and answer your questions and actually answer them in depth. And we've got those guys back at the company, and they're ready to take these calls. So you can actually have a conversation rather than a yes or no answer. Well, that's going to work. Okay, I'm not too sure how much we have, but Joe, just one final thought on residue management.
Well, I think that we've showed tonight how that our products can really work together to not only break down residue management, but to impact this drought stress that the farmers are going through and improve their soils very rapidly, more quickly than they could already, you know, just relying on Mother Nature by itself. So try our product.
Gary, you've got a busy year coming up because now you get practical application of all of this through the drought. It's going to be an interesting year for you.
It sure is.
Well, it's been an interesting time for me tonight, and I appreciate you guys coming on board, having a little patience with me when you talk to a corn and soybean guy, and you know, and I love learning things. The final time for the number tonight, 1-800-978-6342. Again, we have Monty's Plant Food people on the line, ready to have a great conversation with you. And tonight, it's been a great conversation for me. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining RFD-TV Live.
Oh no, you broke your line again? And the bump feeder is jammed, so you'll wind and wind. What a waste of